The Blackstone Launchpad
and Techstars network at UCR really helped me turn my idea into a sustainable business.
have gained a sense of direction.
This program gave us access to the amazing mentors.
Helped me learn more about effective marketing, developing business models,
my entrepreneurial mindset, business plan development, customer discovery, and further improved my startup.
The Office of Technology Partnerships, in partnership with the Blackstone Charitable Foundation and Techstars, delivers Launchpad at UCR to help students succeed in entrepreneurship and their careers. Whether you have an idea, have a startup, or are just curious about entrepreneurship, Launchpad at UCR will offer a variety of resources at all stages of an idea and venture development. This includes workshops and networking events, one-on-one mentoring, Blackstone and Techstars programming and funding, access to opportunities like pitching on stage at CES or traveling to New York to participate in pitching competitions. You can also join Connect, our platform to connect with students, alumni, faculty, and staff to advance your career, find mentors, join startups, attend exclusive events, and much more.
Welcome to the Women's Resource Center. Let's meet our staff.
The Women's Resource Center was founded in 1973. Our mission is to engage students, staff, faculty, and community by promoting gender equality, awareness, inclusivity, and proactive response around issues that intersect with gender.
Our programs and events focus on equipping and empowering this generation of women leaders both on campus and in the community. Our annual Preseed conference, which began in 2017, is the largest women's political engagement event in the Inland Empire.
Free Logic is here to level the playing field and turn ideas into reality. By using modern technology and innovative minds, we hope to transform everyday ideas into something extraordinary. We hope to build our community by partnering with like-minded innovators and inspired creators to bring us all to new heights and create an environment where anyone can succeed. Our team is made up of passionate and incredibly skilled individuals that wish not only to do more for our partners, but for the community we are a part of as well. In a digital era where technology dominates our everyday lives, it has become much harder for small businesses to break through the mold. Our goal at Free Logic is to level the playing field by using both modern and innovative strategies that will not only bring success, but also prepare our clients for the future.
Happy Women's Day 2021, and welcome to the Entrepreneura Summit Day, fundraising for female founders brought to you by the Office of Technology and Partnerships. I am Zondra Leskowski. I'm founder and CEO of OC Angel Investors. We are a women's angel investment group based at the UCI Cove, UC Irvine, California. I have been angel investing since 2013, and I have 36 companies in my personal portfolio. As you can tell, I love startups. And I would love to introduce you to our fabulous panelists. And in fact, I'm going to let them do that themselves. Our first panelist today is Rhonda Schrader. Rhonda, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Well, I love that I'm among people who love startups. This is my tribe. So I run the entrepreneurship program at Berkeley Haas. That's the business school at UC Berkeley. And I also run a program for the National Science Foundation across UC Berkeley, UCSF, and Stanford, where we train scientists, faculty, and others how to commercialize their inventions.
That is amazing. And I know we can talk offline more about that. It's very exciting. And our second panelist today is Molly Schmidt. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Molly.
Hi there, I'm Molly Schmidt. My background is actually biotechnology, and I have a mixed academic and commercial background. I started in academia, so molecular microbiology, ran a lab at Princeton University in their molecular biology department. And some of the research findings we had there led me to a startup in Silicon Valley. And I took a year leave of absence. That year turned into 15 years and 4 different companies. 3 of them were startups. One was sort of a mid-sized international company. Those 4 companies had 2 IPOs, good news, 2 Chapter 11s, bad news. So part of my message is it's going to be a roller coaster, and fasten your seatbelt. During the time I was in startup companies, especially, I gave back to the community by being a reviewer for the SBIR program at the National Institutes of Health. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that probably during the next hour. I currently still have sort of a mixed academic and commercial background. I am an adjunct faculty member at the business schools now, UCLA, Anderson, and USC Marshall. And I consult with the Small Business Development Center. I help startup companies raise money, right? And I do that both through the Small Biz Innovative Research Grant Program, as well as with investor presentations. And I'm also an investor with the Tech Coast Angels. So,
yes, I love speaking to fellow Tech Coast Angel members. They're a huge angel network here in Southern California, and all of those that are listening today, check them out. They're prolific and they're wonderful, and we have so many great angel groups to choose from all over California. So as we're speaking angel investors, let's dive into our first topic here. You know, we are always looking for promising startups to invest in, and what makes a startup fundable, right? So we're always thinking about that too. So Rhonda, first question. Investors have many startups to choose from, companies that are solving really important problems. What attributes are most important at this early, seed stage?
The same that are important at the later stage. You've really got to have some sort of traction or some kind of evidence about who cares, that there's a market need, how much do they care, and why do they care? So I think working with a lot of students, they hear the word angel and they think, oh, an angel is just somebody that is going to give me money and save me. No, the angels have very definitive criteria, which is pretty much the same as larger, more institutional investors. I mean, you're not going to race off of a PowerPoint deck. Nobody's going to fund you to build out your idea. You really have to have some sort of evidence, whether that's a letter of intent, whether that's a completed pilot or in-process pilot, or some early sales. Even if it's not the ultimate market you will be serving, who are going to be those first 50 customers and how are you getting them now? So really generating that kind of evidence is what investors are looking for.
No, you're so right. And before I go any further, everyone listening today, if you have any questions as we go through our discussion today, our topic points, please put them in the chat and I will make sure that we get them addressed. And it's so interesting how you say, Rhonda, that go-to market strategy, that traction, you really need to have an MVP, a minimal viable product. That's kind of what we're looking for at the seed stage when we invest at this time. So Molly, what is the difference between a startup and a small business? And what types of funding might be available for either one?
Yeah, and that's really probably the most important initial question that you should ask yourself as an entrepreneur. What am I trying to do here? If you're trying to become the next Amazon or the next Facebook or the next Google, that's one world, but that's not the only world, right? If you want to create a cool new restaurant or microbrew, those are entrepreneurial events as well, but they're quite different, and the funding that you will need for either of those two types will be quite different. So if you're trying to create a new restaurant, a new microbrew, that's the kind of business that banks actually understand. And so the opportunities to get a loan to start that are very realistic. You've got to put together a plan and understand your market and understand what you're trying to do, but then take it to a bank. If you're trying to build a new tech-based company, whether it's a new app that's online or some kind of STEM-based R&D type of company, those are different, and they're more likely to require other people's money, and those others will take an equity portion or take a part of your company and trade for the money that they're giving you now to help build things up.
And and to really put a period at the end of that sentence, a small business is amazing. You're still an entrepreneur, and you wear many hats in a small business. But like you said, the business, the way you're going to make revenue is there's a clear path to that. Versus a startup is, there's a lot of potential there, but there's not always that clear path to revenue. There is a small path, but when you're starting at this early stage, it's small, but it's going to grow. So it's a little different. And eventually that company will exit, what we call an exit, right? An investor is looking for a wonderful dynamic innovation, but eventually they want to get their money back. And that's really what they want to see in a startup is you have this great innovation, you're going to scale it, it's going to ramp, and then someone's going to buy you or you're going to go public, what have you. So that's I think another great way to describe the difference between a regular startup and a small business, and both are amazing. And in these times, so many new programs really available to support both, which we will dive into. So going back to startups, female founders really need to do their homework and be prepared before pitching to angel investors. So Rhonda, not all angels and VCs, venture capital groups, are alike. And can you give us some insight to this?
Ooh, I can, but I just want to riff off something you just said about female founders. I find that, women founders, I started my first company as an undergraduate with my professor. Wow. And so I kind of feel like females have a superpower when it comes to startups because we're problem solvers. We know how to get stuff done. We're not looking to be in the news. We're not, always looking for credit or whatever, but we are looking to solve problems and we're very good at it. So I just want to encourage all the female founders, whether you're going after a venture business or a small business, really focus on the why and the what problem you're solving, because that's where your strength and your superpowers come from. So in terms of investors, angel groups often have different kind of specialties. You are on the coast. There's others. We have at Berkeley that are, they have some sort of university affiliation. I know that UCI investors. So really try to look to see what that affiliation is and how you can work that system, how you can get into that system and get to know folks, contribute to any communities before you ask for anything. I think that's always a really good practice. And that's my basic advice on angel groups.
Yeah, and angel groups. And it's interesting when we talk about angel groups, we come in at what we call the pre-seed, seed, and bridge to A round typically. And it's either the ideation stage. There's some VCs, venture capital groups now looking at seed stage. They're coming all the way down the food chain to the seed stage where you have a go-to-market strategy, you've got an MVP, you're in early traction, and a bridge to A round, which is just topping off that seed round. So that's typically the sweet spot that angels like to look at. VCs would usually come in the Series A rounds, right? Bigger dollars. But now, I mean, that's one trend we've seen over the past couple of years. Venture capital groups are putting together seed funds, right? So Molly, talk about, once you've got that meeting with that angel or that VC, what should your next steps be? Like, you're a female founder, what should your next steps be? What's important to get prepared for?
Well, honestly, if you get a call that you've got a meeting with an angel group, you better have done your homework before then. You better delay that darn meeting. Because it's not uncommon to just have a few days or a week between when you hear that you'll have a meeting and when the actual meeting is. So I assume that you've got your pitch deck organized, that you've vetted it with your advisors, you've gotten input and changed it. And maybe even this isn't the very first set of investors you're talking to, and you may want to include some of the feedback that you've had from other investors. So you also want to understand who you're talking to and really do as much homework as you can about who the audience is, especially if you've got, as you think about who your typical customers are. If your typical customer is female, then you better do some homework in terms of figuring out how you're going to explain this product to a group of investors who almost certainly will be predominantly men. And it's not uncommon, whether it's a biotech gynecological product or even like Stitch Fix, where they're selling clothing, female clothing usually, for investors to get like this deer in the headlights thing and basically say, I don't understand this, right? And if you haven't sort of anticipated that ahead of time, you've done a disservice to yourself and your company. So really think about it. If the right market is the wives or daughters of the investors, admit that, right? If it's not, if the demographic is not as wealthy as your investors, help those investors figure out whether you really have a market or not, and figure out how you're going to do that ahead of time, because that's a challenge that almost certainly you'll face. Make sure, oh gosh, I had an entrepreneur just the other day. He says, we got this thing and yada, yada. And I said, okay, how long do you have to pitch? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, you better find out, because
what are you going to say?
If they think the answer is 12 minutes and you've, prepared for 20 minutes, that's a problem. It's a big problem. So, have a point of communication, get these questions answered. Don't be shy about doing that, because you have to have this information.
Yep. And to just piggyback on there, everything you're saying is so true. It's so important to do that homework, understanding that angel group or that VC's investment thesis, and look at who funded that venture capital fund and who are the angels in that group. Because I know Angel Capital Association, we're part of the ACA, our group, and you can go in and do your homework. It's called ACA, Angel Capital Association, angelcapitalassociation.org. It's a great place for founders to go and do your homework on all of the member groups that are nationwide and in Canada that are part of the ACA. You can click on them, you can go to their websites and really understand there's Texas A&M investors. Well, they like oil and gas. They like energy. That's their brain trust. That's where that comes from. And then, there's other VCs, that just do food and beverage. That's where they made their money. They invest in what they know. So really digging down into their investment thesis, I think, is so important. Rhonda, were you going to add something?
Yeah, and also understanding what those check sizes are, and if people typically syndicate, because I think that's something many, especially first-time founders going in front of an angel group, don't understand. They don't understand that they might be getting 5 or 6 small checks versus that one big check. So really make the opportunity palatable to as many folks as you can, but also have an ask. If somebody just doesn't get your business, or they've, filled up their quota of investing for the year, have an ask for folks who want to help you as well. Introductions to folks to do customer discovery, potential partners, potential customers. Always, keep those asks open.
Can you explain a little bit what a syndication deal is? Because I think that might be new to some people listening right now.
Got it. So, VCs and angel groups are all about managing risk. In order to manage risk, it's better to make a number of small bets. And sometimes maybe 4 or 5 people will want to go in on a $250K round or smaller by writing smaller checks. So it's just a way for them to manage risk across their portfolio.
Yeah, and that's really important, as we call it, angel seed land. We're seeding little checks at this level on different ideas and different companies, and hopefully they all germinate. That's kind of the goal.
And I would say that that's also true with venture capital. So the check size is bigger, but man, you may need 3 or 4 different venture capital groups to go in. And then the big question is, who's the lead? And there are a lot of venture firms that will say, I like this, but I don't want to be the lead. And so the search for the lead becomes pretty important.
And that I see a lot of companies like that. For OC Angel investors, we have a 7-point criteria each company needs to meet before I take a deeper dive to see if they're a really good fit for our group. And one of them is there has to be a lead investor that I know. And because it'll just save me a lot of footwork, right? But there's always that juggling act, like you got a great startup and people are writing a $25,000 check and a $50,000 check, but you really don't have a lead investor. And like you said, Molly, VCs like to see that, like who's leading the round, who pre-negotiated those terms. It's tricky, but it can be done. If you have something great, and to what Rhonda was saying, the homework and understanding and the syndication piece of it will bring, if we're going to invest, we want to bring like-minded investors in with the deal. So there's, safety in numbers. That's very important. And then, number one, your pitch, right? And that's going to take us into the next question, the next thing we need to think about, your pitch deck, right? I get 20 to 30 companies coming to me a week. And it's all through our website, through warm introductions, through LinkedIn, through everywhere. And if a pitch deck is attached, I will go through it really quickly, right? And that's your calling card. So Rhonda, storytelling is so vital in a pitch deck. And what are some of the things a great story should convey?
So I think 3 major things. So problem, solution, and personal. Why does it matter? So we've seen that some of the best entrepreneurs are ones that are deeply connected to a company that they started. Maybe they've started it to solve a problem for themselves or for someone else, but it's beyond being passionate about it. They really have a personal connection. So I think having those 3 things right up front in the pitch draws the audience in to listen to the rest of what you're talking about.
That's so important, Rhonda. You're right. And Molly, I think you can probably build on this. What are some of the basic elements that a great pitch deck should include?
Well, let me start with what's the right attitude. And the right attitude for you to take is that you want to convince the investors that they are going to make a lot of money if they invest in your company, right? So if you have the attitude that investors should give you money, that's a problem. right? Because they're actually investing, and they, there are different soft things that go into the decision to make the investment, but fundamentally, investors are doing this because they want to make money. So helping them really carefully understand why you believe their investment will make money over, hopefully at least in the plan, a 3 to 5 year kind of time horizon. Things don't always go according to plan, but it should be a rational plan to make maybe 10x in a 3 to 5 year time horizon, at least in the plan. If the plan doesn't have that, that's a problem, because everybody knows stuff happens.
Yep.
So again, it was said earlier, but I think it's really important, is that you're going to convey opinions. My company is great, and there are a lot of customers, and they all have this problem, and we can solve the problem, and yada, yada. But to the extent you actually have information and data that will help convince, as opposed to just talking louder or some, more words, which is the worst.
Yeah, we don't want words.
Then, having real data to say, these customers, right? What type of these customers, they said, have quotes, really get as real and concrete as you can about convincing the investors. So there's lots more. We could stay on this for a long time.
Yes, we can. Yeah. And just go ahead, Rhonda.
I think what Molly said, I love her point about the 10x, because that is something that, especially first-time founders, they don't understand that. And you really have to paint that picture in your pitch. Who would be some of the possible acquirers of you, and what do those comps look like? I think, beyond just staying kind of who, you've got to show that you thoroughly understand how you are going to make the investor money.
Yeah. Right. And let me keep going on that as well, because in a lot of this is experience. We've seen so many bad pitches. I'm sorry. It's just
yes, I think we all have.
But a typical investor question is, who wants this? And a typical bad entrepreneur answer is everybody, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, please don't go there. Please don't go there, right? Because even if that's ultimately true, what you have to tell the investor is, who's your first customer? Because you are a baby company and you've got to target a small number of initial customers. Who are they? How are you going to reach them? And how are you going to talk them into buying your product? All right.
Yep, that's so important. And I think we touched on all the things. I'm just going to leave this question with this: is we have all looked at many pitch decks, and so just some basic advice on pitch decks. Immediately, we're going to look at the first couple slides, and if we don't get it, we're moving on. So you have to convey what I call the PMP. Problem you're solving, the market size, and the people doing it, because at the end of the day, we're investing in the people. We see what the opportunity is, but if the team can't get it to even point A or B, there's no point. Okay, so getting that PMP across very basically and succinctly in your pitch deck is very important. We don't want a bunch of slides. If you've got more than 20, it's not going to happen, because you can't get through that in 10, 15 minutes, because you usually only have about 15 minutes with us to pitch it. And then we want nice graphics, not lots of words. Rhonda had touched on that. Like, if I see something and it's got tiny words and you're trying to fit like tons of data, we don't want that. If we like you, we're going to do due diligence, and then we can get into the minutia of all the questions we want. So just give us, graphics and maybe a little bit of how the solution works. And then, of course, to Molly's point, how do you find those customers? Who are those customers? And what does their experience look like? Again, doesn't have to be wordy. It could be just screenshots, something very simple. So we get an idea of how it works. And then some revenue streams. How are you going to make money? Your financials, just a rough draft of what that looks like, what you're projecting last year, this year, next year. And then, of course, your ask. I've seen some decks where it's like, well, what are you raising? We need to see that. Sometimes they don't put that in there. And then your team and your advisors. So those are some basics that definitely need to be in that pitch deck. And then if we're interested, we will follow up and we'll do due diligence and we'll have many more questions and we get you prepared for that. That's so important. So,
let me just sort of reemphasize a couple of things. One of the first things that I was told when we went into our first venture capital thing is success is getting a second meeting, right? So never forget that, right? It's
right, never forget that.
Success is getting a second meeting, and that creates some bounds on sort of what you put into that first meeting, right? What the point of the first meeting is.
Absolutely.
And there was something else, but it'll come back to me. So
it'll come back. Yeah. And we've got some questions popping in. One of them we're going to address in the next topic. But one of the questions is, what are some of the 7 criteria we look for at OC Angels? So we invest in seed and bridge to A rounds. So they have to have a high barrier of entry and a differentiator. That's very important, first and foremost. They have to have a go-to market strategy. They have to have recurring revenue, so they're in revenue, understand who that customer is, and they're driving down CAC. They have metrics in place, driving down the cost, customer acquisition cost. They already know who that is, or laser focused on getting to that $1 million mark, and then down the road they can offer other things, but let's stay laser focused on and really drill down on who that customer is and bringing value to those first customers. And they have metrics in place. We're looking at the IP, things like that. They have to have a lead investor that we know. They have to have a year of runway in the bank. Now that sounds crazy, but that's important, because if they're fundraising and scaling the business and they don't have the money, they have 2 or 3 months left, they're going to go under. They just will. They're not going to be able to do it all. So that's very important for us to see. That burn is protected for that, for the current burn. Maybe the burn rate will go up, but right now we want to see, well, you're $24,000 a month. We need to see at least 12 months of that in the bank right now, because you're fundraising and we understand, and you're in recurring revenue. So you're getting to profitability, hopefully, closer. The founder has to have built, scaled, and sold a company. Okay, that sounds kind of impossible because we see a lot of first-time founders. That's okay. You have to have someone on your team or someone in your advisory that's done that, or else you will fail, because there are going to be things, I guarantee you, there are going to be setbacks and hiccups and oopsies and whatnots. And if you're not communicating it, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't have people in your team that you can go to and say, oops, this happened, or oops, that happened, how do we figure this out? You're going to go under. So, and that's also comes with communication with your advisors and your investors. That's very, very important. We don't really have that as a criteria, but it's something that I drill down into, because you will fail if you're not telling us like your KPIs on a regular basis. I'd like to see them monthly, quarterly, okay, but monthly's better, because, and I only want to see one little page. 3 things you just did, 3 things you're working on, 3 things you need help from me on. And that is the best. And that is just so wonderful. So that communication comes from the seasoned founder. And then an exit within, 3 to 5, maybe 7 years, depending on what it is. So those are a few of the things that we look at for companies that come pitch to our group. Did you guys want to add a little bit, anything to that? No, we're good.
Sandra, the second point I wanted to raise is sort of related, and it's make sure you understand with the group that you're in front of what their typical investment is, because if that's a mismatch between what you're asking and what they typically do, that's a problem, right? So if you go to the Tech Coast Angels, or really any angel group, and you say, and we want to raise 5 million to yada, 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 even if it's a lovely plan, good luck.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen. It's like, really, even if your company's awesome, the plans are awesome, because this is way out of bounds for their typical investment. And likewise, on the other side, and I've had people think about doing this, go to a venture capital group and say, oh, we don't need that much. We only need $1 or $2 million. And I know you typically do like 5 to 10, but wouldn't it be awesome to invest in us for so much less? And the answer is no, because you're a headache at that smaller number, right? They typically invest in 5 to 10 because they want a certain number of companies in their fund.
Right.
And they can't afford to have 100. They need 15, 20.
And I'll just add a pro tip here. Another big mistake I see first-time founders making in their ask is they say, we need, $200,000 to hire more engineers and salespeople. No, not how you frame an ask. Your investor only cares about if they fund you at point A, where are you going to be at point B? And I use a slide of the Golden Gate Bridge when I teach this. You start out on one side, you're going to be here. Your revenues are going to grow, 50% or whatever that is. It really needs to be framed in terms of milestones versus, we're just going to hire a bunch of engineers and hope for the best.
And if you're doing a good job, if you're really doing a good job is the founder, the entrepreneur, then at that second point, the point where you want to be, you want to have some comps that tell you how valuable that future company will be so that you can actually help the current investor know what they're like, what you project their ROI will be. And if you keep leapfrogging that into the future, you have a better than average chance, I think, of getting funded.
No, I totally agree. And that kind of dovetails into our next, we're kind of talking about this now, our next topic. And, let's explore the funding ecosystem available to female founders right now. So Rhonda, what type of resources are available to female founders, including access to mentors, advisors, and investors that have a specific interest in helping female founders?
Got it. Well, I think it starts with all of us, the Old Girls Network or the Girls Network.
Yes.
Yes. So it's like, who are we? If we want to mentor, let's think about who we're mentoring. So I think it starts by contributing to the community and making that very clear and really building that network out. In terms of formalized specific groups, there is, for students, there's a great organization called Accelerate Her. We use part of our Blackstone Launchpad grant at Berkeley to put on Accelerate Her. There just has to be at least one person on the team who identifies as female, and it is run by the students. It's like an extended hackathon, but it really covers all the basics of starting a company, and it brings out some folks who probably aren't thinking about entrepreneurship, but then they get bitten by the bug. So we always love to see that. So that's for students. For adults and for more advanced students, there's a great organization called Golden Seeds that actually does investing. They will help hook you up with mentors, and they're all just very generous folks with their time.
That's fantastic, Molly. And to add to that point, a lot of your alumni, or a lot of the universities, small and large, have some type of entrepreneurship program or resources like the SBA and Blackstone that are there on the campus. So I would always encourage students to, and even alumni of a college, to go back and see what kind of resources are available to me from my university. There's the SBA, of course, there's the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, where Molly's very involved with. But Molly, and then of course there's there's like incubators and accelerators, right? We have a lot of them, in California, and they're all over nationwide. And do your homework on an incubator and accelerator. They're not all the same, but they all bring value. They really, help you hone that mission if you have a really great idea. Or if you have an MVP, they help you take it to the next level. They explain to you, how to structure, how to pitch, what kind of funding to go for. The accelerators and incubators are so wonderful, and they're not that expensive. It's almost like getting a mini MBA with some of these people. Like that's what I call it, because you're learning every aspect.
And I just have to do an editorial comment on an accelerator that we run. Called UC Launch. So students, alums, and faculty from any UC can go through. We offer it twice a year. It's equity free, and it's really meant for teams that once they have that product market fit and they want to learn how to scale the company. Those are really the skills that we teach in that. It's just a wonderful experience to have a cohort. You expand your network to all the other awesome UCs. So yeah.
That's great. So, okay, Molly, what current trends do you see or project in terms of funding availability for female-founded startups at various stages? I know we're kind of talking to that now. So what do you see?
Yeah, and so I want to echo that there are a number of groups that are really trying to reach out to women founders. So Golden Seeds, Astia, which
Astia.
is in the Bay Area as well, but there are a number of them. So as a female-led or mixed, I'll say team that includes a female founder, know that people are looking out for you. People want you to succeed. So seek out help and don't be shy about that, because people actually want you to succeed. I'll say, I think earlier I said that some of the funding sources for tech-oriented companies are the SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research Grant and Contract Program. And those awards really are also tracking female founders or female-led companies. That's money that really people are looking at and saying, why don't we have more women-led companies? And yet so it's interesting, in 2020, there was a report on women's participation in the SBIR program, and they put together some pretty interesting statistics that said, basically 14%, 14% of SBIR awards go to women-led companies or female PIs. And that's honestly pretty pathetic, 1 out of 7, okay? But then they said, well, okay, is it in the selection process? So how many people, how many applicants were there? And there were like 14%, right? So it's not in the selection process, right? It's in the application process. And then they said, okay, of the types of companies that would apply to SBIR, right? And so this is a research-oriented kind of tech company. And it was about 14%, right? So the problem is not in the SBIR selection process, it's in starting up those darn companies, all right? Now, so what we know, I think, from academic research is that there's just a huge self-selection that women do, right? That, oh, I can't do it. And I know I'm part of that, right? I understand. But I encourage every woman out there to, quit self-selecting and just get in there and start playing. See what you can do. Understand that failing is part of this game. I said we had 2 IPOs, we had 2 Chapter 11s, right? Chapter 11s are ugly. They are ugly. You don't want to be there, but you may. Right?
Yep. It's not always a bad thing to see failure. In fact, I don't know if you guys have heard of Clubhouse. It's a new social media thing, but the 2 founders failed in their first startups.
Yeah.
And so they came together and they started Clubhouse, and they're just killing it. I mean, it's just crazy. So failure is not always a bad thing, like Molly said.
Yeah.
You learn from it. And I know women, we learn from our failures, and we're dang sure we're not going to do them again. Like, that's not going to happen again. That sucks.
Yep. And, the mixed team thing, I've seen, because a lot of the teaching I do is actually coaching MBA level teams. And so I see teams, a lot of these teams self-select. I see all women teams, I see all male teams, I see mixed teams. And honestly, by far, the best teams are the mixed teams, right? There's more diversity, and it's just, think about it. But if you're in a mixed team, don't always be the second, right? Don't let yourself get there. Step up and do it.
Lean in, like Sheryl Sandberg says, lean in, lean hard. And, I just wanted to kind of mention this too. I in the chat, so one of the questions in the chat, and this is what we're talking about, is, where do you go to network with VCs and angels. And, you know, there's a lot of industry events, but like I said, one great place to start is either Angel Syndication Network. Just look it up, angelsyndicationNetwork.org, or Angel Capital Association, angelcapitalassociation.org. Those are two great places to start. And you can just Google it, and they have lists of the different angel groups that are within those organizations. And then I just put in our chat, and I'm hoping they'll share at the end of this panel, there's a great article that was written by a venture capitalist, Joshua Henderson. He started the list about 4 or 5 years ago. He just updated it in, I think, October, because I reached out to him. I said, and it's an ecosystem for female founders. So you can find female-run VCs, incubators, mentorship, angel groups that are women, you know, any ecosystem aspect that helps a female founder is in this comprehensive list. He put it together, and I reached out to him. I said, well, OC Angels isn't on there, so he added us in, and it's great. And I'm hoping, you know, soon, like we're having this conversation, you know, now the past probably 4 or 5 years, a lot of industry is coming to support companies. It's happening. It took us 100 years to get here. It's going to take time to change the mindset, get more females founded. It's happening. Having these conversations is so important. But check out that website or his article. It's really, really great stuff. It's really, really, and you'll have links to all of the groups and all of the mentorship. Yeah. And I'm just so excited to see Goldman Sachs. You know, Goldman Sachs launched a year ago, and that's a mentorship program and funding for female and minority founders. And then there's also like I Fund Women is another one. I Fund Women, and that is backed by capital from Visa and American Express, and they give grants to women founders and women startups. So there's just, it's so exciting to see it growing and morphing, and there's so much more to come.
Yeah,
so
I just want to say, you know, it's so important that this happened. And I know it's a cliche, but for us to leave 50% of the population like out of the game is crazy. It's just darn
missing out too much. And so, that's going to take us to the next question.
One more thing. Just in the time of COVID, oh my gosh, do it now, because you can join chat things and networking things up in the Bay Area if you want. The Tech Coast Angels constantly have, I think at least monthly, different networks are having basically get-togethers. We had them in person, we're having them online. It's even easier online. There's a Women Talk Tech that will come out of the SBDC later this spring and through the summer. Big bunch of women founders and investors will be on those panels. So, you know,
I'll be moderating a few of those. Yeah. It's great. No, the ecosystem is coming. So, and that it's very exciting to see it and that support. So, which leads me into our next question. This is kind of our last topic of discussion. And I know we can lead to another different places from it, but, you know, just to give you some statistics, in 2019, men received 87% of the angel and VC funding. And that sounds like they probably got more. And the fact is that access to capital is a struggle for women founders, women entrepreneurs. A study by First Round Capital showed that companies with female founders performed 63% better than those of all male founding teams. So Rhonda, what recent trends have you seen to help address this disconnect of, you know, female founders getting a fair shake and listened to?
Right. Well, first of all, when I heard that, I just rolled my eyes and was like, duh. I mean, you know, obvi, but yeah. So I think, you know, some of the trends I'm seeing are women are getting more comfortable with knowing their power. They're also getting the data out, and they're not being shy about using that. One of the biggest things I had to overcome being a young female founder was I don't like to toot my horn. I was trained as a scientist. I like to let the data do the talking, but that doesn't cut it, especially when you need to rise above the noise and be that signal of excellence. So I think really women are getting a lot more comfortable with being out in front and showing that data and doing what they need to do.
Yep. No, that is so true.
In, but ready to kick butt when necessary. So
the confidence, when you're pitching, you're the person. I am the only person that's going to make this happen.
100%.
Right. So Molly, how should a female founder construct their funding strategy, and that can increase her odds on obtaining funding on equal footing, with her male counterpart? There's definitely going to be, like we talked about strategy earlier, like how you're going to do your homework. So I think there might be some more things that female founders can do just to make sure that they've got the best chance.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of things. I think being realistic first, in the sense that you have to understand that access to capital is a struggle for everybody, right? It's not easy for anybody, right? It's going to be a struggle. But at the same time, I actually think you shouldn't strive to be on equal footing. I think you should strive to be better, because you probably are self-selected, so you probably are better. And I think you really need to find personal strategies where you believe you are as good as you are, right? And then you can project that to others. I think it's an awesome fact that people are now counting how many women-owned and women-led companies, which means that investment firms that are underfunding women are probably at least a little embarrassed about it. And
just a little bit.
Yeah, and organizations that are doing a reasonable job are sort of proud of it. So I happened on Friday to ask the guy who's in charge of the Orange County Tech Coast Angels, do you know how many women-owned companies you funded last year? And he, like, within 3 minutes in an email, got back to me and said, yes, I do, right? And the number was awesome. So they had 19 investments, and 6 of the 19 were women-owned, led, whatever. So 30
getting there,
right?
Yes.
And so it's just a fact that, be part of that group. Make them proud, make yourself proud, and then go out and succeed and show everybody.
Yep. And then I like to add that, these are all great tips. I mean, angel groups, VCs, they're getting, corporate venture arms are getting the message. They understand there's so much value here, and they're proud to be supporting female entrepreneurs. But another thing, another tip I give female founders is, kind of leverage your community. Leverage the community of other female founders. There's many groups out there now. Women's Founder Network, I'm an investor advisor for that group. It's amazing, and it's funded. They have really, really wonderful, there's so many incubators and accelerators and mentorship programs you can get involved with. Do your homework. Some are a little less information, just kind of seeds of information to decipher. Some are really intense, so find the best fit. But there is more of them. There's I Fund Women, Women's Founder Network. A brand new one that came out last November is Changing Tides Movement by Jennifer LeBlanc. She actually was an ex-Googler, and she wrote a book about when the Me Too happened. And she realized there's no community, here, at least what she's seeing in the Bay Area, for female founders to kind of commiserate and compare notes. And so she started that. So do your homework. These are great groups to join, and they have different approaches. And I'm so happy to see that there's more and more of them, coming out and supporting female founders. And then, ask those venture groups or angel groups that maybe you didn't get funding from, do you have, is my solution a better fit for another group within your within your network? I mean, don't be afraid to ask that, because, we've done the diligence, or maybe it wasn't a fit for us, but here's a couple other groups, we could do a warm introduction for you. I get a lot of those, because the deals we see in OC, I'm a Tech Coast Angel member as well, and I'm in 2 funds, so I'm spread a lot. Some deals don't always make it to my room because they're not a good fit for my group, but they could be a great group for co-fund, or they could be a great group for TCA. So, always ask, we're not a good fit for you, but do you know of another group that might be interested in our solution? So using that network, those warm introductions, find a community. These are all great ways to kind of help educate the best approach for your fundraising. Rhonda, did you want to add anything?
No, those are all great tips.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of our hour. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour almost. This is great. I could go for more and more and more. And I'm thinking of our final takeaways. This hour has been so informational, inspirational, giving lots of advice, great advice, and tools and places to look for female founders. Rhonda, do you have any other takeaways for our listeners today?
Ooh, just final pro tips. Focus on your customers. Fall in love with the problem, not the product.
Yep. How about you, Molly? Final takeaways.
Yeah, I'd say don't do it alone, right? Whether it's collecting a set of really solid advisors or, reach out the small business development centers. There's one at UCR, there's one at UCI. I'm sure there's one in or around Berkeley. But these folks, we get government grants from the Small Business Administration to help entrepreneurs. And UCR, UCI have tech-oriented advisors who can help you out. And we do it for no cost. So it's no cost to you because the government pays. We can help review your pitch. We'll kick the tires just like investors would do. And that preparation should make you much more confident and a better pitcher to get.
Yeah, great. They're great tools. And for me, it's just, we're investing in you. So if you're passionate about the problem you're bringing to the market, that's going to shine through. All the homework is going to be great, and it's going to get you over the line. So be your passion, be the biggest evangelist, and the passion. We love passion. I want to thank you, Rhonda and Molly, for joining me today in this really, really important discussion. I want to thank UC Riverside for including all of us. And I wish everyone a great day on Women's Day.
Yes. Goodbye. Good luck, everybody.